Hey there guys, welcome to the channel. I hope you're doing well today. I'm going to be sharing with you 3 habits that keep me productive and that I believe will boost your productivity if you can incorporate them into your daily life as well. These habits keep me on track when it comes to the goals that I've set out for myself to achieve, such as learning how to code, learning piano, waking up on the first alarm instead of pressing snooze for an hour. That is a big one. Along with all the other stuff like making YouTube videos, putting content out into the world. And the habits also help me with the more mundane tasks that we all have to do, like laundry and cooking for ourselves and all of that nonsense, right? So without further ado, let's hop into it. Habit number 1 is making a to-do list. Now, this is probably one of the most obvious ones that you already know of, but make sure you stick around because I'm going to share with you how I structure my to-do list to make sure that I'm not making one that will actually hurt my productivity, because that can be an easy trap to fall into. If I don't make a to-do list, then I will tend to just kind of aimlessly spend my time throughout the day and just kind of exist in this void of what am I doing, right? And I won't have any motivation and I'm gonna be beating myself up over not doing things. I'm sure we've all been there, right? And after being stuck in that void for, enough time, I realized, okay, let's start getting on top of spending my time intentionally and productively. So started making these to-do lists and I haven't looked back. So let me dive into a bit more detail about how I structure my to-do lists. Now, I don't necessarily believe in writing every single little thing down on this to-do list that I've ever wanted to do ever under the sun because, well, then I'm not going to get all of it done and I'm going to feel bad about myself, and that's actually going to hurt my productivity rather than help it. Allowing yourself to become discouraged and upset with yourself is a guaranteed way of becoming less productive. So let's figure out how we can avoid that. For me, I like to think of my to-do list as, well, less of a list because lists can be kind of boring. I mean, they're useful and they're great and they're amazing, but looking at it every day being like, here's my to-do list feels very like robotic and, hustly. So I like to think of it more as like a roadmap of the day. What am I going to follow on this adventure? I've been inspired by a lot of Ali Abdaal YouTube videos. He describes his lists as, what adventure am I going to take today? And that really resonated with me, and I've started structuring my to-do lists to correlate with that. Recently, I've been into making 2 types of to-do lists for each day. Let me get into why that is. One of them is fairly detailed, and you can think of this as, the step-by-step directions when you pull up the GPS on your phone. It gives you every single turn and how you're going to get to your destination. In this case, the destination is my bed at the end of the day. So when I wake up, how am I going to go through my day step by step? And I have an easy list to follow here. Of course, I make sure not to overload the list. You can see here, I've got some gaps in the day. I don't fill every single slot out because if I did that, then again, I'm probably not going to get everything done on the list and I'm going to feel bad about myself, which is not what we want. So instead, I keep it realistic, I keep it achievable, but put enough of a challenge on there so that I am not getting lazy and not feeling complacent, but every day feels like I'm challenging myself a little bit more and that I'm just getting better at the whole getting things done thing. The second type of roadmap that I've been enjoying recently is from a more zoomed out perspective. This is like pulling up the GPS and looking at the map instead of the step-by-step directions. What twists and turns do I have? What's the general shape and outline of my day? Now, it can be a bit easy to fall into a pattern of looking at this list and because it's less detailed, thinking I'm not getting as much done. But it's actually the opposite, because looking at this simplistic view of my day allows me to focus my energy and my attention to these individual tasks or projects, and I'm going to be a lot more productive and effective and focused on those things than I would be if I were to have this long list of every single little thing I'd like to do every 5 or 10 minutes. I do love these little to-do list sticky notes. I'll leave a couple links in the description if you want to check them out, but one of them is an actual just checkbox to-do list. The other one breaks up the day into AM things and PM things, and I find that very useful for the more zoomed out list. Habit number 2 is delaying the consumption of caffeine. Until recently, I had been drinking coffee pretty much as soon as I wake up, right? I would roll out of bed, make coffee, throw a bagel in the toaster, and boom, we're getting going with the day. But a few weeks ago, I was exposed to the idea of delaying the consumption of caffeine and how that can be extremely beneficial to your energy levels throughout the day. My first exposure to this idea was while watching a YouTube video about neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's morning routine, which I'll link in the description, of course. First of all, let me introduce you to the fact that we have a neurotransmitter in our bodies called adenosine. Now, adenosine promotes sleep, it reduces arousal, and it's increasing throughout the day and is at its peak right around bedtime. And then overnight, adenosine dips, it diminishes, and within the first hour or hour and a half of waking up, it's continuing to dip. It doesn't start rising right away. It's still being flushed out of our system. And that's why when you wake up first thing in the morning, you feel quite sleepy and groggy. And that is because you still have a buildup of adenosine that your body is flushing out. Now, what caffeine does is that it blocks the receptors in our brain that take in adenosine. It basically just shuts the door on our adenosine receptors so that we don't feel sleepy, right? It makes us feel more alert because we're not receiving that sleepy chemical. Now, the problem with drinking caffeine immediately after you're waking up is that you still have a buildup of adenosine in your system. So you're blocking out the receptors, but you're not allowing the adenosine from the night before to fully be flushed out before it starts increasing. So because it's already at a pretty high level when you wake up, if you're just blocking those receptors, then the adenosine levels are going to just continue to rise throughout the day, and we're going to have that afternoon crash by the time the caffeine wears off. We're basically getting smacked in the brain with this sleepy chemical, this adenosine, right? And that's not what we want, because then we're going to either feel the need to chug more caffeine or just take a big nap and wake up 3 hours later wondering what year it is. But if we wait to drink caffeine until an hour to 2 hours after waking up, then we allow the adenosine from the night before to naturally be flushed out of our system before blocking those receptors. This way, by the time the afternoon hits and the caffeine has worn off, we don't have as high of a level of adenosine and we don't get that afternoon crash. This allows us to naturally get more tired, more sleepy as we approach bedtime, rather than crashing in the middle of the day where we're trying to continue being productive. I have personally been implementing this into my life ever since I watched that video by Andrew Huberman, and I can honestly tell you that I am enjoying the effects of caffeine much more than I was before, and I'm not just making that up. Now, it could be some placebo that I watched this video saying, hey, if you delay caffeine consumption, you're gonna feel better, and now all of a sudden I feel better, right? But honestly, I enjoy the process of waking up, getting natural light in my eyes, which has a whole slew of benefits that I won't get into in this video, but check out Andrew Huberman's video if you want to learn more about that. I wake up, I go out onto my balcony, or I go for a walk, which movement and exercise also helps lower your adenosine levels, by the way. Another little tip for you. And I allow that adenosine to flush out of my body before drinking caffeine, and that caffeine gives me a little kick in the butt and gets me going, and I don't really have that afternoon crash as much as I had before. Habit number 3 is minimizing distractions. And you see me holding up my phone here. And I think we all know that our cell phones are one of the biggest distractions that have ever been introduced to our lives. This one is very important, and if out of all 3 of these habits you're taking one of them, I would recommend to really take this one to heart. I've never really been into social media that much, and I grew up in the generation with social media, right? Everyone in my classes, everyone in my school had Instagram, Snapchat, all of that stuff, and I just wasn't very into it. I mean, I didn't get my first cell phone until I got to high school, which to some of you may be like, well, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was in my 30s. But everyone else had cell phones much younger, and they had their DSs and all of that on the bus. And instead, I just wasn't taking part in that. And I think that's helped me block those distractions out later in life. I say later in life like I'm on my deathbed, but I'm only 22. But anyway, looking around and seeing how many people are stuck on their phones, scrolling, going through Instagram, TikTok, all of that, helps me realize that keeping that out of the way helps me really stay focused on the things that I want to do every day. I know it seems obvious, but it comes down to the simple things like when I am waiting at a doctor's office, I don't take out my phone unless I'm researching something specific. I will intentionally leave it in my pocket or just in my bag or whatever, just so that I'm not distracting my thoughts away and throwing them into the void. And instead, I'm just using that peaceful time to sit and think to myself and figure out, what do I want to do with my time today? What do I want to do with my life? All of these big questions. I'm really trying to think about those things every day instead of just saying, oh, I'm kind of bored right now. Let me take out my phone and start scrolling, right? Because then our brains never get a chance to just relax and decompress. And I find that extremely helpful. Now, I do go on social media every once in a while, and I do scroll on TikTok, right? But I intentionally do it only certain times throughout the day. For example, when I'm in the bathroom on the toilet, right? That feels a little weird to say online and, to the camera, but that's a time where I'm already, okay, taking a step back from the day, kind of, in my own room there in the bathroom. And I'll allow myself to scroll for a few minutes and just kind of check up on that. But I don't do it at other points throughout the day when I could be doing things that are actually productive. Since I already know where I'm supposed to be directing my energy at certain points throughout the day, thanks to my to-do list, I make sure to block out any distractions that would keep me from doing those things. For example, if I'm working on something that has to do with words and language, such as writing the script for this YouTube video, then I will only listen to music that doesn't have lyrics or vocals. I'll listen to piano music or, other classical music, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, right? Like these big, epic soundtracks are great, but I avoid the lyrics. And I do this because I don't want my brain to be multitasking, right? The language processing part of my brain can only focus on one thing at the best of its ability at a time. And if you're trying to split the attention among, the words of the music and the words you're writing, then the quality of the writing is not going to be as high. But if I'm doing something like cooking or cleaning or going on a walk, then I'll throw on a podcast or listen to music with lyrics because those won't distract me from the task at hand. Keeping my phone away and not opening social media and intentionally picking my music are just a couple examples of how I set up my environment for success. Now, if I were to get into all of the ways you can do this video would turn into a feature film, and we're not doing that. So I'm sure I'll save it for future videos, but these are just a couple examples of how you can minimize distractions to stay focused, use your time efficiently, intentionally, and effectively, and stay productive. Okay, to recap, the 3 habits discussed in this video were making a to-do list, a good one that will keep you motivated and challenged, but not discouraged if you don't get everything done. Delaying the consumption of caffeine so that you have a chance to clear that adenosine out of your system before blocking out the receptors, and setting up your environment for success by minimizing distractions. I hope you found this information useful and inspiring, perhaps, and that you will take action on this. If you don't already do these things, then please try it out. Try making a to-do list for 5 days in a row. Create that habit so that even if you're not making the list, your brain is set up in a way where you know how your day is going to be structured and how you should dedicate your time to doing certain things. Personally, I have seen and felt incredible results from these simple habits, along with others that I'll share in future videos, of course. So don't underestimate the effect that these simple things can have on your life. It's the small improvements that we make every single day that really add up over time and improve our quality of life. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more content like this. And if you know of anybody, like a friend or a family member that may benefit from watching this video, then feel free to share it with them as well. That's all for now. I hope you have an amazing day.